Hi everybody, my name is Fred Newman. We did research in the 90s up until 2000 or 2001, which showed that students who experience instruction and assessment scoring high on standards for authentic intellectual work scored much higher on achievement tests, and their patterns of achievement were more equitable than students experiencing much lower levels of authentic standards in their instruction and assessment. The state of Iowa asked us to begin a professional development program to see whether it would be possible to teach teachers or to help teachers learn how to teach to these standards explicitly. And we're now beginning to learn whether that was successful and that improved student achievement.
Hi everybody, I'm Bruce King. In addition to Fred's work through 2001, additional studies confirmed the important findings he mentioned. But we really don't know yet if a program of professional development can enhance teachers' practice and in turn enhance student achievement according to standards of authentic intellectual work. In 2007 and 2008 school year, the Center for AIW partnered with the Iowa Department of Education to do just that. We started that school year with 9 pilot high schools and now work in over 120 schools pre-K through grade 12 over the past 6 years. We've conducted an initial evaluation in partnership with the Iowa Department of Ed of this professional development work, and we're pleased to present the findings of that in this brief presentation today.
What were the main components of the AIW-Iowa initial evaluation? There were 4. Case studies were conducted at 4 of the pilot high schools. Focus group interviews with AIW principals and curriculum directors from 22 of our schools. Teacher assessment and other tasks were rated before and after receiving feedback. And finally, testing results from AIW schools were compared to the testing results from matched non-AIW schools. We encourage you to read the full reports on the Iowa Department of Education's website. We're going to spend most of our time on the testing results, but note here some important insights from the case studies and focus groups. First, professional culture has improved. Teachers are valuing their professional development experiences. Professional development overall is more sustained, and administrators are reporting a higher quality of teacher collaboration, as well as providing teachers with more relevant feedback on their practice. Importantly, classroom practices are also getting stronger, with teachers facilitating student thinking and classroom discussions at a much deeper level, and expectations for student learning overall has been increased, and curriculum more closely connected to students' lives. One way to assess the impact of professional development is to examine teachers' assessments and other important learning tasks in the original form and then in the revised form after teachers bring these to their AIW learning team. We collected these samples across the 4 different subject areas, and in the column marked mean differences you can see the level of improvement from the original to the revised tasks. Fred.
Those mean differences, the asterisks indicate that even though that difference looks kind of small, it's statistically significant, which means it's unlikely to be due to chance, more likely to be due to a real difference in the population. The effect size column is another way of looking at how large these effects are, and generally in terms of educational research standards, if you see an effect size 0.3 or above, you think that's a fairly significant result. That means a third of a standard deviation advantage to the group that had the higher mean.
We looked at testing results on the ITBS and the ITED, which is the secondary equivalent in Iowa. 16 AIW schools were part of this study, and they were matched with 17 non-AIW schools, roughly the same amount of students from grades 3 through 11, and we looked at their testing results in English language arts, mathematics, science, and social studies.
And those 4 subjects over 9 different grade levels indicates 4 times 9, a total of 36 comparisons, and we found that in 34 of those 36, the AIW schools had an advantage. 25 of those were significant at 0.05 level of statistical significance. We also found a couple of anomalies where in 2 grades in social studies, the non-AIW schools had an advantage. We'll look more specifically at some tables that indicate how much of an advantage in each of the subjects at grades 4, 8, and 11th, which are the main grades for reporting of testing data in Iowa. And a percentile advantage essentially means that an average student in an AIW school compared with an average student in a non-AIW school, the first bar there for 4th grade indicates that the average AIW student would score 9.2 percentiles higher than the non-AIW student. And we have similar positive results at the 8th grade and 11th grade in reading. And moving on to mathematics, you also see significant gains, significant advantages for the AIW students in terms of percentiles above the average non-AIW student. Similarly for science, same kind of advantages. And for social studies, somewhat of an anomaly in grade 8. We don't understand why there was hardly any difference in grade 8. Now the question is, was the professional development that we offered actually producing these achievement differences? It's possible that even though these schools were matched according to school size and socioeconomic status and so on, and grades, that the AIW schools may have had more effective teachers right from the beginning. They volunteered to be in the program, and often in educational research you will find that participants who volunteer are more likely to be receptive to whatever intervention you're measuring. One way of finding out whether there was a selection bias here was to look at achievement differences between the AIW and non-AIW schools prior to their entry into the program. So what we did was we went back. The program started in 2007. We went back 3 years to 2005 and looked at whether there were achievement differences between the AIW and the non-AIW schools. And you'll see in the first 2 columns there were 18 comparisons, and in 15 of those 18 comparisons, the AIW and non-AIW schools were essentially equivalent. There were a few significant differences, only 3 out of the 18. In contrast, if you look at the 2011 comparisons, that's after the program had begun, and we look then at reading and math in grade 4, 8, and 11. We have 6 possible comparisons, and the AIW students had a major percentile advantage in 5 out of those 6 comparisons. We still, however, are not sure the extent to which professional development is contributing to these advantages, because the data that we collected in this initial evaluation were school-wide averages. And within these schools, there were teachers with different levels of experience in the AIW program, and we were not able in this particular evaluation to track the individual student to the individual teacher and connect that information to the amount of participation in the program of that teacher. So we hope in future evaluations to rectify some of these limitations, that we and hopefully would track individual students' achievement to the specific teachers by each year and subject, and then we could see the connection of the individual student achievement and the extent of the students' exposure to teachers with different levels of AIW program participation. That would help us really examine both the quality of implementation and the relationship of that implementation to student achievement, because ultimately in most research, most of the variation in student achievement is explained by differences between teachers, not between schools.
These findings from the initial evaluation are optimistic, and we're confident that continued studies will reinforce these findings. Professional development overall has a pretty poor track record in education, but we are optimistic that what we're seeing in the AIW-Iowa Professional Development Project will continue. Thanks for joining us today.